Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager. It's episode 17. We have another regulation change vote, our third of the season, which was really unexpected. I was a little surprised when we got to two, but I was like, okay, kind of makes sense. One was on changes to the car, one was on changes to the structure, the rule structure. So it's like, okay, one of each, one business decision and one race decision makes sense. But here we are on yet another rule change, and this one that I'm absolutely not a fan of and will easily be voting against, and this is a redistribution of the season prize share, which would go into effect next year, with more money going to the top and taking money away from the bottom, except for literally the last place team. It does keep the structure, rather close near the bottom, but that's not good. That is absolutely not good. I am all for a more evenly distributed, not evenly. I do think you should be rewarded for doing better than other teams. But legacy payments in years have passed threw off the balance so much. Ferrari would get more finishing a few years ago. I don't know the exact numbers here, okay? And I know this is going to end up being a slight exaggeration, but it's not far from the truth. Legacy payments to Ferrari in particular, they weren't the only ones collecting them. I think McLaren and Williams were collecting as well, but at a much smaller number. And even that, I'm not it's been a few years, okay? So my memory is not sound on this one. But the Ferrari legacy payments were in the tens of millions, to the stage that it nearly, no matter where they finished, they could finish essentially last in the constructors. The legacy payment combined would still have them earn more than the top constructor, just for the name and being a part of F1, just for that legacy payment that they were collecting. Put them so far ahead of everybody else that no matter what they did, they were out earning everyone around them. They've done away with that with the new financial structure over the last couple of years, and this is essentially what that new financial structure is, and it's so much more evenly balanced. And this is right. That was completely wrong. Favoring more towards the top end, though, is going right back to what it used. I'm not a fan of that. Like I said, I think you should have variance top to bottom. You should earn more for doing better. If you price out the bottom feeders where they're not earning essentially anything and all the money's going to the top, then you're always going to have one or two or three teams dominating, and you're never going to have the others catch up. But we're definitely voting against this one. Checking back in on the status of our drivers and where we're at. Porsche, long-term lock for us. We want to see him develop. We want to see him grow. Albon, I've started asking questions. One, he's wanting major upgrades to his contract, and his development has already slowed. He's already down to just average, and he's one of the lower rated drivers in the field. He's not that high. He's better than the young up and comers in current ability, and he does have decent pace, but there's definitely better out there. If we look at those overall ratings, Albon is barely even making the last spot on the first page of drivers. That's a lot more than 10, meaning that's more than half the grid. That's more than the first drivers. We're into second drivers in quite a few cases before we ever even get down to him. In fact, how far down the list are we? Is that 10 right there? He's 14th on the list out of 20 in the field. And then we have a young guy. It'd be nice to have a higher quality driver up there. But then, of course, there's that age factor, and I'm absolutely thinking about long term. One target to most would be Verstappen. The negotiation attitude is not interested. We have not built a reputation that's going to get us to the top of the grid. The first one who is open to negotiation, if you're looking on the right-hand side here, is Bottas. But he's 33. We're not going to hire a 33-year-old into the team. That's just not going to happen. Mid-20s is the absolute limit. I'll tell you that straight up right now. We are thinking long-term. Therefore, we won't touch anybody in late 20s and older. Russell's not interested, so that brings us down to Ocon, Norris. They are open to negotiation. I have scouted them. Now, they're both at 86, 22, 25 years old, so they're in the age range. They're the first ones to consider because they're both +5 overall compared to Albon. They are definitely better, stronger, young drivers, and technically younger. Albon's 26 already. For me, Ocon is the most underrated driver on the Formula One grid today. Now, my reasoning behind that is he regularly beat Perez head-to-head when they were at Force India. The only reason why Perez finished ahead one of those years was because Perez, his racecraft, he would literally wipe Ocon out repeatedly to beat him. And that Ocon had more unreliability, but he was consistently faster. They were similar, but Perez got a lot more attention. Ocon, a little more quiet. He's not as much of a personality, and therefore he didn't get the same attention that Perez was getting when they were head-to-head. And then Ocon has to then race alongside Alonso these days, one of the greats of the sport. And Alonso has it all and has that giant personality. So again, Ocon goes unnoticed compared to his teammate. And for the most part, he's right there. He was right there with him. Qualifying wise, he's almost on par with Alonso, who again is still, most people rate him as one of the 3 or 4 best drivers. Yet Ocon beats him fairly consistently, or competes with him fairly consistent. Not every race weekend, but if Alonso is so great, how is Ocon keeping up with him? Just fine. And doing it without all the drama. That's not to say that Ocon is one of the best on the grid. I think Alonso's a little bit overrated. I think Ocon is underrated. And I think they are very similar. He's doing it 16 years younger and still growing and still developing. And I think he would be an upgrade compared to Albon. But how much more development does he have left? I don't know. But he is +5 to where Albon is now, so at least he's got a head start. Definite candidate. Norris, the buyout is $16 million, and he's making $10 million a year. He is a good driver, and I actually would rate Ocon and Norris similar to each other. So I love that their ratings are identical. I do think that these guys are very similar. Ocon brings some things. He doesn't have raw pace. He's an all-around driver. He's got racecraft. He doesn't crash hardly at all. I mean, his historical crashes were Perez slamming him into the wall. Otherwise, when was the last time Ocon had a big off, right? He's pretty dang consistent. He just, again, flies under the radar. He's in the points all the time. He won a race. Yes, there were circumstances behind that win, but he did claim one, and that still didn't boost his profile. Anyway, Norris is just too costly. I would love to have Norris at 22, already in 86, but not developing much more. And I think a lot of that's because he has already achieved, most of what there is to achieve. And that's the thing. There's not going to be much potential left at the top anywhere. Gasly, for me, at 26 already. A little too old to take that on as a project. I'd rather just hang on to Albon than switch to Gasly when you're swapping like for like, only slightly better. Better, yes, but not by enough to consider making that sort of move. So right now I'm looking at either an upgrade to Ocon as the only young driver higher up the grid who is an improvement, or you hang on to Albon, or you start going younger. So to go younger, we're then looking at Guan Yu Zhou, Lance Stroll, Yuki Tsunoda. Now, Stroll's been in F1 for a number of years. Paid driver who, got his seat when he probably didn't deserve it, but he's had enough years in F1 that he has grown and developed into a decent driver. And the terrible reputation that he had for a number of years has diminished, and now he's just, he's okay. I don't think he's going to get much better than he is. I really don't think he's going to get much better. He is 23, so he will. He's still going to improve for another 2 to 3 years, and then he'll peak. And I think he would peak in the low 80s. So you can set that one aside. So we're looking at the young drivers in Formula One as Guan Yu Zhou, who is almost level with Albon, and 3 years younger. But Zhou, growth potential is already average. Overall pace is similar. I think we're at, 79 average on Albon. He's 78. So that's not going to help us. Yuki Tsunoda, also average. Much less on the pace. And that much I fully agree with. Fully agree. Tsunoda, so highly rated. And the guy is, let's say, adorable, right? He's got this thing that makes him a very likable person. A very, very likable person. For that, I think he's overrated as a result. He really just hasn't performed. So I think his ratings are excellent. I think they've done a really good job with their ratings in this game, their driver ratings. I think whoever sat down really, really took their time and analyzed things well, and analyzed things honestly, and came up with some really good results. I don't find anything in here that I'm like, oh, come on. I think they did such a good job. And then that's kind of it for the Formula One current grid. Mick Schumacher maybe, but he's only a 76 overall, 23 already, and I'm assuming would be a bit of a cost, though he is in an expiring contract. So that would be one to scout and see and go from there as maybe. I know a lot of people are going to say Piastri, but looking at Piastri and the absolute shit show that he put on this summer to force his way out of Alpine and try to get the McLaren seat, I no. I can't support that. Are you kidding me? Now, F1 Twitter, people adored him for that, but F1 Twitter is so toxic. So toxic, and I just don't want that toxicity in our team. Even though we're playing a game here, and it doesn't really matter, I'm not bringing him in for that. No effing way. By the way, Nick DeVries, what a drive this weekend, showing how much more pace he has compared to Latifi. Latifi's been in the team for, is it 2.5 years now? Or 1.5 years? Whatever the case may be, from when he replaced Kubica. Whatever the case may be, Latifi has never shown consistent pace. He's hardly scored any points. He has one 10th place finish where not many cars finished in a race and circumstances were awfully crazy. But Latifi's never had that pace. DeVries gets in the car Saturday, and by the end of Sunday, thanks to Albon's appendicitis this last weekend, which, by the way, Albon, hope you get better, buddy. He did have some complications from his surgery that was just put out today. So Albon had surgery on Saturday over this appendicitis. So they got him in right away, and he had surgery. He ended up in ICU with, he had to be intubated, right? Intubated. So he had some complications following it and had to go into ICU apparently now, which I'm recording this Monday. Now he's doing okay, but it was not good there for a little while. It was really not good there. So glad to see he is now doing better. But yeah, if you hadn't heard the news on that one, things did not go terribly well following the surgery. Problem that does happen, but is certainly not a common one to have after that surgery. De Vries, 27, he's too old, but he really showed how much better of a driver he is compared to Latifi, and I'm guessing that a lot of the F2 drivers on this list are where you start getting into guys that are under underrated, guys that are better than you would think. De Vries, De Vries is Formula E. He's a reserve driver in Formula One, and that's why he, got that drive. But De Vries, I mean, where is he compared to Latifi? +1? +1? I mean, Latifi. Wow, okay. Here's the silly thing about this game. He literally drove for us up until 2 months ago. We should literally know everything about him. Why wouldn't we? Anyway, his pace was quite low, right? It was in the low 70s or high 60s. Pace was very much off. De Vries, we're not even going to know because he's the Mercedes reserve driver officially, but also technically Williams. Yeah, so we don't know what his pace is in relation, but he drove the wheels off that car compared to drove his arms off. Wrestling with that thing, not used to how tough it would be, in a car that was not suited to him. I'm assuming his arm position was probably off a little bit, as his seat position was not, ideal. Just having to raise your arms up that little extra bit and then do that for an entire race, being in this natural position versus, say, a raised position, I could see that making your arms want to fall off by the end of that thing. So, hands down, fantastic drive. Long story short, at this stage, we're looking at retaining Albon, upgrading to Ocon, or finding a second young driver and developing 2 young drivers down the road. I think more realistically, I want to get a second young driver in the reserve seat and then maintain Albon or upgrade to Ocon. And financially, I think we can absolutely afford an Ocon upgrade. $5 million for the buyout's not that bad. We have that kind of money. The salary isn't a small amount. I mean, it's over $4 million, and Albon's $6 million. So I'm guessing we'd have to pay Ocon a similar amount to get him in. But hey, come on, it seems pretty doable to me, right? I mean, we're talking about spending $5 million up front, but Ocon's a definite option. Albon, though, he's got that likable trait. A lot of people really like him. So do I. Pushing Pourchaire up to a 60 in reactions finally gets him to his first overall development point. He's now a 74 overall. Add that race pace where we've got those nice 80s here. Only a 60 on the reactions definitely is the slow one, and that's why we've put 5 points that we've acquired so far this season all into reactions. First research project is done, and that is development for the front wing for next year. And like I said, I've got 2 teams, so I'm going to have one team working on this year's car, one team working on next year's research. So we're going to move on to our next area of upgrade. Probably the underfloor, I think, might be the next one, as we know how valuable it is to get things done on that underfloor. We've already done 2 upgrades for this year. I'm kind of focused on other areas now, so I'm thinking underfloor for next year might be a good one. It's almost the end of the season, actually. Research benefit definitely looks like a positive. I'm pretty happy with that amount of upgrade for us. The chassis is something I don't think I'm going to necessarily get to this season, and I do recognize that overall top speed is our biggest problem. Drag and overall top speed. We lag behind every other team, so I think the chassis is actually a better place to go right now, and would actually end up being a fairly quick upgrade in terms of turnaround time. I am going to, I think, recalculate a little bit because we're going to still be in this period when this project is done. From the looks of it, it's only going to take a little over a month, and I think we've got close to 2 months till the end of this period. Therefore, I'm going to have to get in 3 upgrades instead of 2 over this stretch. So I'll back off a little bit on the scale of this upgrade, but this is where. So we have the cash right now, and that buffer is plenty high enough right now. So we're going to go ahead and make another upgrade to our first upgrade, actually, to the CFD simulator. And you can see where we gain in testing a pretty substantial bonus as you go through. How long this is going to take, I guess we'll find out. It's going to take 48 days, but that'll bring us up to level 2.
Welcome to Life in the Fast Lane. We're here at Monza in Italy, the home of Ferrari. But who will take home the points this weekend? Let's find out as we get started with the Italian Grand Prix. Monza, a centurion among circuits, dripping with motorsport history. Expect to see cars fly by, as 80% of the track is tackled at full throttle. It's not all go, however, and brakes can be prone to overheating through the tight chicanes that Monza has to offer. This is it. We're down to the last few races of the season, and it's time for that final push. Who will be crowned champion at the end of it all? We'll find out soon enough. The weekend begins here.
Heading to Monza, heavy rain expected on Friday, dry on Saturday, Sunday. Here's my expectations for this race. If you don't know Monza, well, here it is. You can see it's straight, 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 straight. 80% of the track, you're full on the gas. And then you have low speed, semi-low speed, little medium speed area, and one fast speed corner. This one goes against everything that our car is set up for. High speed? No. Low speed corners? No. Engine braking? Or just braking? We are last place in all of those categories. Medium speed and high speed is the only place we're good, and we have one section of each. So even Aston Martin should finish ahead of us. We will probably be last place in this race. Part of the reason why we've given such a long intro in this episode compared to others, usually we are into the race by this point of the video, and we're just now entering the practice weekend. There's going to be a lot less footage of those. We're going to be cutting briefly through, as I estimate, that we will maybe, if we're lucky, battle with Aston Martin, as we're just about close enough to them. But we should very much be at the back of the grid for this one, I would suspect. Could be a very good opportunity to throw in some penalties to get us set for the rest of the year and just start from the back of the grid and have the components we need to get through the remainder of the season without any further penalties over the remaining races. FP1 pace is showing that we actually are faster than the Aston Martins, good half a second faster, but we're 0.4 of a second slower than the Haas, and 0.75 of a second slower than pretty much everybody else. So again, not looking very competitive at all. Rain has begun to fall. We'll be dealing with that with the rest of practice. It does slow down your progress a little bit as you're getting fewer laps in at a slower pace. So it's harder to know what's going on, and especially with dry coming on the next few days. But fortunately, this game doesn't differentiate between wet weather setup versus dry setup, so it does make sense to continue running in the wet. Final minute of FP2, and we've had 5 lockups and 3 spins between our two drivers. Albon damaged the floor on one of those spins a little bit, but they're having a rough go out here. Pace-wise, just barely ahead of the Aston Martins. We are running a high fuel run, so we haven't improved our times in a while. We still have about 0.3 on them. Race pace competitively wise, but yeah, it's not looking great for this race weekend. Last race, or maybe 2 ago, I think it was last race, with Albon, we took all new parts, took that grid drop. We're going to do the same for Porsche in this race, but seeing that his engine, his ERS, and gearbox all have some life left in them, and we are bound to be slow for this race anyway, we're going to take the penalties without installing the parts. So Porsche is going to start at the back of the grid with those grid penalties, and then next race, depending on where we're at, I got to think about what that's going to be. What is next? Singapore? Ooh, looking forward to that one. But anyway, that's where we'll put all those new parts onto the car, and that will hopefully get us towards the end of the season. For Albon, though, I think we might be close enough to make it to the end of the year, or at least worth a shot to not take the penalties here. There are 5 cars, including Porsche, that are going to be taking grid drops this weekend. That could give Albon at least a decent chance of finishing maybe 13th, 14th, 15th this race weekend. I don't think we'll feature in the points with our limitations here, especially if the locking up and spinning is something we're going to see a bit of in the race as well. 2 banker laps in for each drivers on the same set of tires, and they actually, the first lap, they got out clean air, no one in their way whatsoever, and then with all sorts of traffic on the second lap on the same set of tires, they still managed to improve their times. So my guess is that the track is rubbering in quite quickly and grip is improving, which means it's going to be really important to get out last. Now, that's always evident here at Monza more than anywhere else, as you get a serious tow going down the straights following another kart in real life. And so, everybody's crawling all over each other to be the last one out, as we saw a few years ago, I believe it was. Almost half the cars miss out on their final run in one of the qualifying sessions. But anyway, they were crawling all over each other to be the last one, and nobody wanted to go. Nobody wanted to go first and not get that tow. And it saw most of the cars not even get the lap in as the time had expired. Right now, we are P14, P15, ahead of not only the Aston Martins by 0.7 of a second, but the 3 other cars as well that did not get a clean lap in. Pace-wise, we are off. We are off the back, but not significantly far off. We've managed pretty good times. We do need to get ready for the session, though. Let's go ahead and fuel up and put those fresh tires on, ready to go. Sitting and waiting to start things off. 318. Last of a couple cars are entering pit road here in a moment, and then we'll start seeing cars head out momentarily. We're going to go pretty quick through this one. Like I said, my expectations for this race are fairly low, but here we go. Alonso, first one out. And we're starting to get down to the last of the cars. In fact, I think they're out now, so let's go ahead and get Porsche. Minute 54, it's enough time still. And we'll get Albon just a few seconds behind. There you go. Now, have I left it a little too late? Probably not, but we're definitely last ones out there, so we're good on that part. I don't think you really get the advantage of a tow here as you would in real life as much. Let's see, we're pushing out, getting on with it, and we down to 30 seconds. I think this is close. This is close. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I do not get the last lap in. I left it too late. I left it too late by about 5 seconds. I stretched it. I wanted to be the last ones, and I left it too late. That's the second time I've done that now this season. But the whole thing for us is we have to be the last ones to have an advantage as track grips in. That's going to drop us down. We're already out. We were already going to be out. Porsche was going to be at the back, and but this does hurt Albon a little bit because the Aston Martins are going to probably be ahead of us. Stroll is not, though. Stroll is not able to improve. Vettel probably not able to improve. So I think we're going to be where we would have been anyway. We had a chance with Albon anyway to go a little bit higher if we hadn't messed that up. That's my bad. Officially P17, P18, but of course Porsche going to the back of the grid.
It's race day, and final preparations are underway.
Williams had a good performance in qualifying. Now they'll be eager to demonstrate that they can have an even better race. Haas proved quite resourceful during qualifying. That puts them in a very good position to make the most of this race start. And the weather is sunny here today, apart from a few clouds. Let's hope they remain scattered on the horizon.
Well, this is going to be one thrilling Italian Grand Prix, and we're nearly ready to kick things off.
One-stop strategy is absolutely the way to go. Unlike other tracks, the pit straight is on a lengthy straight that's very, very high speed. which means that ground is covered quite quickly. Compared to other tracks, you lose a lot more time when you're going slowly through pit road and making the same pit stop that you do anywhere else, covering the same distance you do anywhere else, but because everybody else is covering that distance much faster, you do lose a lot of time here compared to other tracks. So you want to make sure that you make a one-stopper happen. And for us, starting towards the back end of the grid, it makes more sense to medium to soft, where we can go a little bit faster later on as we're going to get caught up in traffic. My hope is wherever it is that we're running, we can hang on with the DRS and hang with those guys. Now, officially, our starting position is 13th and 14th. Porsche not getting the penalty, even though we spent the money on the new parts, not getting the penalty because I didn't install them. They caught me out for what I was trying to do. I think you used to be able to bank those and take the penalties at a time and not actually have to put them on. Now you have to put them on for that to happen. But I've done it under Parc Fermé. So what should happen, compared to real life, is I should be starting from pit lane in P20. We'll see if they do that to me, or whether I still start in P14, or whether I start P20. We'll see what happens here in just a moment. If I do happen to start from P14, we've found a bit of a glitch.
I don't want to tempt fate, but there are quite a few clouds overhead as we look at the lineup on the grid. Here we have Alexander Albon. They're starting in the bottom half of the grid today, so there's a lot of cars between them and the podium. And looking at the second Williams car. Slower than most yesterday, so today they'll be starting from the bottom half of the grid. The teams are ready to go. Here we are at the oldest circuit in Europe for this, the Italian Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
And as the race gets underway, quick update on where we're at on that stuttering issue that we've had throughout the series here. I don't know if it's going to be 100% taken care of, as Porsche does start from last place on grid, not pit road. So I'll take that. I haven't seen any sort of pit road starts, so that seems to be a common theme that's out there, as Porsche really having to back off on this start, and he's already P20, so I think there's no reason for him to go crazy and attack as he's slow. We're already going to go into this whole long run for him and save ourselves for later. We're behind a McLaren who's obviously faster, so let's ride the coattails and see if we can't make some progress through the field otherwise. Vettel instantly already losing a second first car on track, who is more than a second behind, as he's 1.4 behind Albon right now, well out of DRS range, and holding up those behind him. That could be really good for Albon if Vettel and Stroll can hold these five up a bit longer, as those are the five that have taken those grid penalties, bumping everybody else up. Anyway, back to what's going on with the stuttering in the scenario behind that one. So I've fully identified the cause. A little bit of help. Alex, I don't remember your full screen name, but somebody in the comments has helped me out a little bit in identifying what exactly is going on, and I have the full sequence identified finally as to what the cause is. So on my screen, my graphics card, my GPU, is 100% fully capable, as somebody has locked up going backwards, and that is Magnussen to the back of the grid after locking up there in the first chicane, it looks like. So that bumps him down to P20, and Albon now up to P12, and the gap to Vettel is now over 2 seconds. But we do have Ocon making a move, trying to get through. That could drag that group back forward again, unless he can quickly get beyond Vettel. But for now, Stroll already down to P17, but Vettel holding him off for the time being. Anyway, my graphics card is a very good graphics card, though there is now better on the market. It was top of the line 2 years ago when I got it, but GeForce RTX 2070 Super is what I have in here, and it easily handles this game by itself. However, here's what my graphics card has to do. Full ultra settings on the game, 0 stuttering on my screen. But I have 2 screens that I'm running, and so my graphics card has to handle both screens. So it handles the game first, and that primary screen first. Then it handles my second screen, and it has no issue handling that. But then its third task on its list is then encoding for OBS, encoding for what you are seeing on your screen. So that's the third task that it handles, and that's where it reaches its limit. So it handles the first task, no issues, perfectly. Handles the second task, no issues, perfectly. Through the third task, it can't handle all 3. And it reaches the limitations of its 3D rendering and of its internal memory to make that all happen. Meanwhile, my CPU on this game, with all of those sequences going, and my web browser and all of that, it gets to about 33% max, generally in the 25 to 30% range, so it's easily handling it. But the graphics card is reaching its capacity, reaching its limit. So to combat this, 2 things are happening. One, I've been gradually lowering the settings just a little bit. Alvin's still running P12, by the way, and still pushing really hard, so I need to back off to aggressive here. That gap to Vettel, 5.6 seconds. 5.6. So I'm totally happy with where we're at.
Lifting coast level 3.
At some point, we're going to have to restore the ERS. Pourchaire Magnussen has quickly caught up, and somehow Pourchaire has lost the wheel. Well, it was lost the wheel of Ricardo. He's gone around Stroll. We will catch back up to Stroll, so I'm not too worried about it. And it looks like Magnussen can help Pourchaire pull back up there and get him ahead of Stroll here eventually. As Magnussen is not as fast as Ricardo. My graphics card, lowering the settings, even though my screen looks great, lowering the settings means it's going to use less power to run that. And second screen's unaffected, but third task of encoding for OBS on the recording, where it's dropping frames. As I lower those settings more and more, not only is it less to do for that third task, but lowering the first task, eventually it's going to get low enough where it's not dropping frames. I think it's still dropping the occasional frame right now, but from looking at it, very minimal. I think you're getting at least 50 frames per second now, and that's just about enough to not really see any stuttering anymore. Graphics are down quite a bit, so that first task, that's temporary. I decided I'm just going to go ahead and make some upgrades to the computer for the long-term health of the computer, the long-term health of the channel, not just for this series, but, you know, it's a necessary move. I'm loving this huge gap that's emerging. Ocon, Schumacher, Gasly have all gone beyond Vettel now. The gap, Ocon, 5.5 seconds, it's coming down. And Albon, unfortunately, I back off just a little, and he's already lost the wheel of Monza. So we don't have the pace today, folks. We just do not have the pace, and it's starting to show. Vettel has helped us out a little bit. Stroll, Magnussen has already gone by, and Pourchaire already putting Stroll under pressure. I think we'll beat the Aston Martins just fine, but yeah, others, they're just getting away from us a bit. So it is what it is. We're going to go a lot faster through the time being. Ocon with the lockup gives us a little bit of a gap again as he goes backwards. In fact, it looks like he's gone all the way to P20, and that gives us now 6.5 seconds to Schumacher once again. We do get Stroll to the inside here. We're on the medium compared to his soft, so I think longevity-wise later in the race we're going to have even more pace comparatively, but we do finally get beyond him, and we're going to continue on for a little bit just to make sure we are in that ERS range of those ahead of us, and Vettel coming up here fairly soon. Pourchaire has made his way around Vettel, is now into P17, but is already, by time he made that pass, more than 2 seconds behind Ricardo. So I do think we can push and get away from Vettel and leave both Aston
Look at
Martins in the
reducing
rear view
lift
of
and cook.
both of our drivers. We've got a bit of a gap between our two, as Porsche obviously started back and Albon started a bit higher up. But we're going to push on for a little while here with Porsche. Meanwhile, Albon, I was trying to push on to see what would happen, trying to catch up to Guan Yu Zhou, and that didn't go so well, as multiple cars have crashed, and we are going to enter a safety car. Safety car period is coming. We have not seen the crash just yet. Do I
You just
want
have to
pit
follow your
somebody
delta.
now? I
Follow
don't
your
think so.
delta and you'll
We're
be
going to
safe.
ignore. No reason to pit at this point. Imagine we've got a Haas that's going to stop. So it looks like he's still running. Gasly is out of the race. That's who he hit. It was Schumacher who hit him. So Gasly, I think Gasly had just passed Schumacher because those were the two cars trailing Albon. Albon's still in P12, but Porsche up 2 positions. So yes, those guys were just behind us. Gasly had just gotten around Schumacher, and then Schumacher maybe trying too hard to stay in that fight. Couldn't break in time, locked up, went into the back of the Gasly. Gasly, who hit the wall really hard, is out of the race. Schumacher lost the front wing and is able to continue just with a pit stop. He'll close back up on the back, but he's going to have a lot of ground to make up to be competitive. Now for Albon, this is bad because his advantage is gone. And with nobody pitting, we can go ahead and start backing off again on the fuel load, even though Albon has lost a lot of ground on those guys in front of him. Knowing that under the restart, the guys in front of us are faster than we are, I don't have high expectations for moving forward. But Albon actually looking really good at the moment. I think he's got a run going on the McLaren.
And use overtake.
No change. P12, P15. So let's go ahead and go back to neutral. One big thing that I've noticed this year is that the moment I get off of neutral with ERS, overtake, defend are useful. Deploy hasn't done much for me. It just burns through that ERS really, really fast. But when we're on neutral, our pace is good. The moment we drop to harvest, we have a massive drop in our pace. Massive drop. And as slow as we are in a straight, we tend to fall out of DRS really, really quick. So I've been using the ERS much more sparingly as a result. Pick and choose my moments. I don't spend long on it because it is so difficult to go back and harvest. So I'm trying to do a lot of my overtaking with fuel load and pushing the tires because we are good on tire wear, both drivers, and we tend to be fairly good with fuel burn. So turning the engine up a little bit, it's not going to be this lap, it's going to be next lap. But we'll use that overtake, see if we can't get to the inside of Guan Yu Zhou. Don't think it's happening, it's not. So back to neutral. That was our best chance. Woo, close call there. Under braking, almost got into the back of Guan Yu Zhou. I think we just avoided the lockup and just stayed out enough out of the way on that one. Vettel and Stroll back to 18th and 19th now, and Schumacher, I'm guessing, has a bit of damage that is causing him to lose some pace because he is more than a second behind Ocon. So if we can see those three drop back, that would be really good for our race today. But I just don't think we're going to quite feature in the points. But remember, we're up medians here, and there's going to be 20 guys around us that are that have opted for the soft. Ocon, Stroll, Ocon and Stroll, Norris, Alonso, and Perez are all going to be pitting sooner rather than later and having less pace later on. But of course, just because Norris has less pace now, or has more pace now than he will later, does not mean he'll be slower than us. As well, it's Norris. He's a McLaren. I think even on the mediums he'll be faster, but Perez pits now. So, Alonso, Norris all into the pits. We should see Ocon and Stroll in the next lap or so do the same. If I were them, I would have pit under the safety car. Nothing to lose from that, everything to gain. However, the hards are that much slower, so not necessarily the right choice, but and you might put yourself into a two-stopper if you pit earlier. We've only been, what, 3 laps since we came back from the safety car? So Albon's still benefiting from following Tsunoda, so that's good. And then Pourchaire, though, has a bit of a gap. He is in no man's land now. He's got nobody to follow. So for Pourchaire, expect him to fall back a bit for Albon. He's got a real shot here with this DRS train if it continues on for a little while yet. Nice that on this track you have DRS at the front and the back. You have kind of start of the lap, midway point of the lap, so it really makes it a lot harder to have cars escape DRS. Magnussen again, I believe, as he's gotten into the back of another car.
It's crystal clear who was in the wrong there.
It is. Magnussen has picked up a penalty, and it's Guan Yu Zhou that he hit, who had just recently pit. So, wow. It was Schumacher last time, was it not? And then Schumacher, was to the back of the grid, and then all these other guys have pit, except for Vettel. He passed Vettel, but the rest of those were all pit stoppers. So Magnussen had pit. So now each of the two Haas drivers have crashed into somebody ahead of them. Yikes on that part. Big time ouchie. Magnussen adding a penalty to that one. That's impacting Zhou's race, and this is really helping Albon's chances today of getting a decent finish. Even Pourchaire, for that matter, though he is slowly drifting further and further back. Without that DRS train, you see the pace difference between Albon and Pourchaire. They've been pretty close to each other throughout this race weekend. Albon slightly faster than Pourchaire, but I'd say by less than 1/10 of a second. Albon has been off the pace for a while, and finally, Ricciardo has gone by. We're still in DRS range. We'll try to hang on. So it's down to P8. Sainz hits. So he is the first stopper. He's going to have a hard time making it to the finish, stopping that early. Sainz is going to have to really conserve, but he's trying to maybe get the undercut.
A new race position for Haas.
Schumacher has overtaken Pourchaire. Oh, Sainz came out just ahead of Pourchaire, and Pourchaire backs off a little bit, and Schumacher behind him, who had been a couple seconds back, comes barreling through at full speed and passes both, makes the double overtake. Now we've got Perez and Vettel close behind as well, so bad luck there for Pourchaire with the Ferrari getting his way. We're far enough behind. The double stack should not be a problem. Pourchaire, you can see, is
and
10,
box.
11 seconds behind Albon. So 11 seconds, more than enough time for the double stack. We're okay there. Make that 2 seconds now in not quite 2 laps. About a lap and a half, he's gained 2 seconds on us. Such is the pace difference. But this is not blue flag situation. This is a battle for the race lead as we peel off and head to the pits. Let's see where we come out at. That's going to be the important part. Are we still close enough to be in a battle with Tsunoda and Ricciardo, who currently run P13 and P14, by the way? 2.705. Good stop from Albon. Let's check in on Pourchaire as he comes in. enough time there, so we were good on the double stack. No issues. 2.677. It's got a slightly better crew chief. But the difference is quite subtle. Albin comes out with them. He is still with them. Good. Go aggressive. You're fine.
Can't afford to drop
Tuck
back.
in. Tuck in. Just don't be so slow. Don't be too slow. Comes out right with Sonoda and Ricardo on tires that are 2 laps fresher. However, he tucking in behind Sonoda comes out a little slow. I don't think we're going to get DRS. That's not good. And right now, pushing the way we are is keeping Ricardo behind.
Down.
We're already starting to overheat.
Probably understood.
Come on, almost a second. Almost a second. Good little run there. Can we get back within? Can we get back within through this next chicane? This is our strongest area. But here comes Ricardo pushing. Come on, 1.05. 1.02. Inside a second. Let's go. Let's go, Alvin. 0.95. Here comes Ricardo. Somebody has spun. We pull back ahead. 0.935. 0.935. Let's go. Let's go. Get in there. Get in there. Magnussen is the one with the spin, and we've got DRS. That's going to close it down. That is going to close it down. Difficult situation. I think Porsche is going to be in no man's land for a long time coming. Magnussen had all sorts of issues. The Aston Martins are just straight up slower, so Porsche will have to eventually back off on the fuel. But for now, he's going to run in that no man's land of P16. His only way forward is if you get a mistake from somebody in this group. But top 10, our chances right now is going to come down entirely to a mistake or a second pit stop. Albin temporarily ahead of Sonoda. Ricardo was temporarily ahead of Albin, but that DRS obviously is too much. We're going to have to really be in second wheel of our trio and then make a push on the last lap. That's our only way. And in these instances where we get ahead, we lose too much pace, and we've really got to be careful of not losing the DRS after they make the pass. Leclerc leads from Hamilton from Russell. Mercedes really moving up the order quite a bit. Tosi will be happy today with the Leclerc likely win with 5 laps to go. Verstappen, Sainz 4th and 5th, Perez 6th. Alonso in no man's land in 7th. Bottas now drops to 8th. Norris well clear of Sonoda, who has Ricardo and Albin in tow. We still have a chance at a top 10. At a top 10. Somebody has pit. Is it? Who went backwards? Who went backwards to make this about 10, 11, 12? I think it was one of the Haas cars. I think we got a second pit from one of the Haas cars, I'm guessing. Porsche, the gap with Magnussen has come down by 0.2 of a second, but that's it. That's it. He's not gaining enough, so we're not going to push on with Porsche. Let him hang on to that P16. Our race here is with Albin.
Okay, 5 laps to go.
Fuel, no problem. We will continue to push on at that DRS, obviously making that huge, huge difference for us. Yellow flag. Yellow flag. Where is it? Who is it? What's going on?
Oh, we've had a spin.
Hamilton with the spin. Dropping out of 2nd down to 5th place. Oh, huge mistake there for the Mercedes. %37% on the tire wear at this point is not good. Not good at all. Porsche in much better shape as he has not been involved in these battles. He's good to go to the end of the race. In fact, do we want to turn on ERS? No, we'll wait till the last 2 laps. Put the ERS on for Porsche, and Juan Ocon will not catch up to us, so we don't have to worry about that. This is now a 3-horse race here for the final points-paying position. Can we get a point today? I don't think it's likely. If we were in the second position, I'd like our chances. But we're down to 36% on the wear. We're going to start taking penalties once we get under 30%. Okay, here we go. Here we go. In close, in tight. Can we get around Sonoda? No, not now. But we are so much closer this time. So much closer with a lap to go. Push on. Go attack. Overtake on. Attack. 31% though. Can we follow one through?
Check the DRS.
Not this time.
Yep, copy.
Battery empty already. Just like that. One straightaway.
2 laps.
One straightaway and it's drained it. Final lap. Push on all the way. From P12. Can we get one? Can we get both? Looking not likely at this point. But we will try. We will try. Meanwhile, Porsche 1.6 behind Schumacher. Use that overtake.
Yeah, copy. Is everything okay?
And go attack as
Is
well.
available if needed.
Leclerc enters the last lap. We still have a lap and a half to go, by the way. We have a lap and a half to go. Without the overtake, you can see we're starting to drift back. So with that ERS being drained, we are struggling to keep up with these two right now. Tires only slightly overheating, so we're fine there, but 28% on the wear. Starting to fall off the cliff. We are losing some lap time, and we do not have ERS either. It is not good for those circumstances, but it's P12, P16, and the lead lap. Vettel 27 seconds behind. We have a huge gap to those guys, but we're out of this race now. 0.8 of a second behind as Sonoda and Ricciardo continue to battle for the final points-paying position. Hamilton very close to Sainz, looking to get back up into P4. He's only a 10th behind. I think that's probably a more interesting battle than what I've got going on, but Ricciardo and Sonoda is an interesting battle. Leclerc claims the race victory just ahead of the Aston Martins. Russell in P2. Great podium there for the Mercedes, who are obviously the third quickest car. Verstappen a few seconds behind in P3. Sainz looks like he might hold off Hamilton here. Three-way battle right down to the line. 4, 5, 6 for them. Alonso, there's Vettel, Magnussen already coming across. I do not think Schumacher. Porsche has passed Schumacher. Porsche has caught and passed Schumacher. He did it. He did it. P15 for him, but that looks like P12 is a lock for Albon. We will not catch those two. Didn't quite have the pace, but it's still a really good result. P12 ahead. That's looking like P15 for Porsche. So there's a big win for him. Not that it matters. It's not for points, but it's still from 4.5 seconds back. Schumacher, notably, was carrying some damage from his earlier crash, and he took on, he and Magnussen both poor races with their crashes, definitely impacting their day. But that does mean we were P7 today in the constructors, so that's a good day. We beat the Haas's today. Good result. That's going to do it for this episode. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.